A full fridge can still cost too much. That is the part most people are never told. You can have food in the house, shelves that look reasonably stocked, even a freezer with a few things in it, and still feel like the grocery money disappears too fast. Not because you are careless, not because you are failing, but because a lot of food is not really food in the practical sense. It does not turn into meals. It fades, spoils, gets skipped, or forces one more trip to the store when your energy runs out. And that is where the real leak begins. Today, I want to walk you through 12 grocery staples that protect a budget after 60. Not as a diet plan, not as a list of perfect foods. This is consumer protection for the grocery aisle. These are the items that help older households waste less, buy less emergency convenience food, and keep meals from falling apart halfway through the week. Because the hidden cost of groceries is not just the price at checkout, it is the food that gets thrown away. It is the takeout meal bought because nothing feels easy. It is the breakfast that does not hold, so you spend again before lunch. It is the pantry full of ingredients that never quite become dinner. Once you see that pattern, you stop blaming yourself and start building a system. So let's start with the first layer, the foods that stop waste before it starts. Number 1 is frozen vegetables. This is one of the most practical grocery defenses in 2026, especially if fresh produce keeps slipping past the point where you can use it. Fresh vegetables can be great, but they are also the easiest thing to lose money on. You buy them with good intentions. They sit. You get busy. You feel tired. Then a few days later, they are limp, soft, or headed for the trash. Frozen vegetables change that equation. They are already cleaned and ready to use. They do not ask you to race the clock. They make it much easier to put something green on the plate without the pressure of perfect timing. And that matters because the more often vegetables are actually used, the less money disappears into the crisper drawer. A bag of frozen vegetables is not exciting. That is exactly why it works. It is stable. It is predictable. It waits for you. If you have ever stood in front of the fridge wondering what to save before it goes bad, this is one of the easiest ways to reduce that stress. Keep a few bags in the freezer, and you are less likely to end up tossing produce that never got its turn. Number 2 is bananas. Bananas are one of the simplest foods in the whole store, but they solve a very specific problem. They make a fast snack feel real. They make breakfast feel less empty. And they help bridge those days when you need something inexpensive that does not require a lot of thought. The useful thing about bananas is that they work across a range of ripeness. A greener banana can sit a little longer. A yellow one is ready now. A softer one can be used in other simple ways if you want to avoid waste. That means the same bunch can stretch through more than one day of use. For a household trying to protect food dollars, that flexibility matters. It means fewer, I have nothing ready moments. It means fewer trips for a convenience snack. And it means fewer foods going untouched because the right window passed too quickly. Number 3 is potatoes. Potatoes are easy to underestimate because they are ordinary. But ordinary is not a weakness. Ordinary is often what keeps a household steady. A potato keeps well. It is filling. It can be used in different ways without needing a complicated plan. And when you need something that can stand in as part of a meal instead of becoming another forgotten side dish, potatoes are hard to beat. This is one reason budget grocery carts become unstable when they are built only around items that spoil fast or need special handling. Potatoes give you a little breathing room. They are a pantry-style staple with actual staying power. If your food spending keeps rising but meals still seem to fall apart, look for items like this. Foods that last longer reduce the chance that you are buying the same thing twice in 1 week because the first round went bad. Now we move to the second layer. Foods that hold the day together. Number 4 is oats. A lot of grocery stress starts in the morning. If breakfast is too weak, too expensive, or too easy to skip, the whole day starts wobbling. Then, by mid-morning, you are hungry, unfocused, and more likely to spend money on something quick and overpriced just to get through the hour. Oats help prevent that. They create a breakfast that actually holds. And I am not talking about making breakfast complicated. I am talking about creating a base that feels steady enough that you are not thinking about the next snack before you finish the first meal. That alone can protect money. Because a breakfast that holds is a breakfast that reduces drive-through stops, vending machine purchases, coffee shop add-ons, and random convenience buys later in the day. Number 5 is peanut butter. This is one of those foods that earns its place because it works when energy is low. There are evenings when nobody wants to cook. Not because they are being difficult, because they are tired. And when the kitchen feels like work, that is when convenience spending gets dangerous. That is when people say, we'll just get something. Peanut butter can close that gap. It is quick. It is easy to pair with other basics. It gives a snack or a simple meal more staying power without asking for much effort. And when you keep a food like that around, you are less vulnerable to the tired hour. That hour is expensive. That tired hour is where budgets often leak out one small order at a time. Number 6 is milk, or fortified milk if that is what fits your household. The important idea here is not hype. It is usefulness. A glass of milk can make a simple breakfast feel complete. It can support a low-effort meal. It can help a household have one more easy option when appetite is low and nobody wants a big production. That matters because when food is easy to use, it is more likely to actually get used. And for older households especially, ease matters. If a food is hard to open, hard to store, hard to finish, or easy to forget, then the value drops fast. The best grocery staple is not the one with the most marketing around it. It is the one that fits your actual life. Now we move into the protein gap. This is where grocery bills can quietly rise when the cart looks full, but the meals feel weak. Number 7 is eggs. Eggs are one of the clearest examples of a food that delivers a lot of practical value for the money. They are versatile. They are quick. They can be part of breakfast, lunch, or a simple dinner. And because they are easy to cook in small amounts, they help reduce waste. That last part is important. A lot of households lose money not because they buy too little protein, but because the protein they buy is too large, too fragile, or too difficult to use before it turns. Eggs are easier to manage. You can use a few. You can keep the rest ready. You can make a small meal without turning on a whole production line in the kitchen. For a lot of people over 60, the real value of eggs is not just the protein itself. It is the fact that they make a meal possible fast. Number 8 is canned tuna. This is the kind of pantry item that protects you from the nothing-to-eat moment. You know the moment. The fridge is there, the cabinets are there, but none of it feels like a real meal. Everything would need too much work. So the temptation starts to build. A sandwich shop. Delivery. Something pre-made. Something that solves the immediate problem but costs far more than the food in the pantry. Canned tuna helps interrupt that pattern. It is fast. It needs minimal cleanup. It gives you protein without asking for an elaborate plan. And because it stores well, it can sit there as a reliable fallback instead of becoming another item that expires before it gets used. That does not sound glamorous. It is not supposed to. It is supposed to protect your money on the day when your energy is low. Number 9 is beans. Beans are one of the strongest budget tools in the grocery store because they stretch the meal, not just the shopping trip. They can help turn a small amount of protein into several servings. They work with rice. They work with canned tomatoes. They work as a backup when the fridge looks thin. And when used well, they reduce the pressure to keep buying more expensive items every time you cook. That is the deeper value here. Beans do not just feed you once. They help a household function across more than one meal. That is how a budget starts to stabilize. Not with dramatic savings. With food that keeps working after you bring it home. Now we get to the foods that give structure and keep boredom from becoming waste. Number 10 is canned tomatoes. This is one of the most overlooked items in a budget kitchen. Plain staples can become boring fast. And when food gets boring, people stop eating it. Then it sits in the fridge or pantry until it gets forgotten. Then you are back to spending more money because the food you already bought was not appealing enough to finish. Canned tomatoes change that by adding flavor, moisture, and structure to a lot of simple meals. They help turn dry ingredients into something that feels like an actual meal. They make beans more useful. They make rice more useful. They make leftovers more likely to be eaten. That is a real financial advantage because food that tastes like a meal is less likely to be abandoned halfway through the week. Number 11 is rice. Rice is one of the clearest base foods in the grocery system. It does not need to be the star. It just needs to do its job. Rice helps the rest of the pantry come together. It gives structure to leftovers. It gives beans somewhere to land. It gives a small amount of protein and vegetables a more complete feeling. And when a household has a base like that, it becomes much harder for the week to unravel into random convenience purchases. This is where a lot of grocery spending gets smarter. Not by chasing the latest trend, not by buying expensive shortcuts, but by keeping one or two neutral, reliable foundations that make everything else more usable. Number 12 is chicken thighs. Now, this is not about saying one protein is always the best choice in every store, every week, in every region. Prices move, packages change, stores vary. But in many households, chicken thighs can be a more practical choice than pricier cuts because they often provide useful meal value without demanding perfection. The bigger issue is not just the cut. It is how you handle it. If you bring home a large pack and leave it all in one container, you can create more stress and more waste. But if you portion it out and freeze what you will not use soon, you turn one purchase into several controlled meals. That is the real lesson. The budget is protected when the food can be managed. Midway through this list, I want to pause and reset the pattern because this is the part that matters most. The real grocery leak is usually not one big disaster. It is a handful of small ones. Waste from produce that does not get used. Meals that are too weak, so you buy something else. Tired evenings that push you toward takeout. Pantry food that sounds fine in theory but never becomes dinner. And boredom that makes you spend again because the food in the house does not feel complete. That is the system. And once you see it, you stop treating groceries like a moral test. You start treating them like a household defense plan. That is a very different mindset. It says, what will actually get used? What will hold for the week? What will reduce the number of emergency decisions? And that is how a smart cart starts to form. If you are watching this and thinking, yes, that is exactly where my money goes, good. That means you are seeing the pattern clearly. That is not bad news. That is power. Now let's turn the list into a simple shopping strategy. When you build a cart that protects your money, start with anchors. Anchors are the foods that keep the household from falling apart when plans change. Frozen vegetables, oats, rice, beans, potatoes. Those are the items that make the rest of the cart safer. Then add flexible proteins, eggs, canned tuna, chicken thighs if the price and packaging make sense. These are the items that stop meals from becoming weak and expensive. After that, add a few flavor builders. Canned tomatoes is one of the best examples. It helps prevent pantry boredom. It gives plain food a purpose. And it reduces the chance that ingredients sit untouched because they never become something people want to eat. Then round it out with easy, low-friction foods that help with the hard parts of the day. Bananas, peanut butter, milk or fortified milk if it works for your household. These are the kinds of foods that catch you when energy is low and the urge to spend on convenience starts rising. That is a better cart, not a bigger cart, a better one. Now, what should you leave out when prices are tight? This is where a lot of money gets quietly lost. Be careful with foods that disappear too quickly for what they cost. Be careful with items that sound helpful but require too much prep for the way you actually live. Be careful with convenience packaging that charges extra for the privilege of buying less food in more wrappers. Single-serve does not always mean practical. Pre-cut does not always mean useful. Ready-to-eat does not always mean budget-friendly. Sometimes the expensive item is not the food itself. It is the packaging, the convenience, and the waste that comes with it. That is why reading the shelf with a calm eye matters. Look at how long the food lasts. Look at how many meals it can support. Look at whether it will still be useful when your energy is low on Thursday night. The best food is not the one that sounds the healthiest in a slogan. It is the one that actually gets eaten and keeps the household steady. And that brings us to the full picture. These 12 staples protect your budget because they solve the real reasons grocery money leaks out. They reduce spoilage. They reduce the number of weak meals. They reduce convenience spending when you are tired. They reduce pantry boredom. And they make it easier to build a week of food without constantly starting over. That is the part most people miss. A good grocery system is not about perfection. It is about repeatability. If you can repeat a few reliable meals, repeat a few stable shopping habits, and repeat a few foods that hold their value after they enter the house, then the whole kitchen becomes calmer. And calmer is cheaper. Because when the household food system is steady, you make fewer rushed decisions. You throw away less. You buy less in panic. You feel less trapped by the store. And you get back a little control every week without having to live like you are on punishment. So if you want one simple takeaway from all of this, it is this. Build your cart around foods that last, foods that hold, foods that combine well, and foods that your household will actually eat before the week runs out. That is how you protect money. That is how you reduce waste. And that is how you stop the grocery aisle from quietly draining your budget one small decision at a time. If this helped you see the system more clearly, keep going with that mindset on your next store trip. One better staple at a time can change the whole rhythm of a household.